Hi guys, I'm editing this massive video that you're about to see right now, and I forgot to make an intro, so here we go. Welcome. This is a massive question and answer session over from my live stream, and we answered a lot of different things, and I'm gonna add all the timestamps down below, so you can jump around, watch a little here and there, and come back to it and do whatever you want with this video. So enjoy.
Touch on your spotting process. For that, you're giving me a lot of things to think about, because now I need to import a video that I can show, and I have a plan for doing this exact thing, importing a video into Cubase, and go to File, Import Video File. And I have, we can do this guy. So this is the modular template thingy that I made, and I kind of need to try to remember what all these were and did and all of that stuff. F8 will pull out the video window, and it's here now over on another screen usually for me, but this is part of something we will be doing, which will be fun. This is 50 minutes of me just recording sound effects, and we'll do a full track based on a video game. Now, that's going to be fun. I have something shorter to work with first of all, and I'm using Alt-X to cut everything at the cursor position, everything selected. Do you worry about lining up the frames to the video time marker? Yes. Depending on what I'm working on, I do. So the first thing that I do when I receive a video to work on, just going through these, is down here I can, let me turn off the piano actually. So down here I can choose bars and beats, seconds, or time code. And sometimes it's a little buggy, so you need to go between timecode and back to bars and beats. I'm good, Mr. Bounce. Hopefully you're good as well and ready for tonight. I'm drinking Red Bull, so hopefully I'll talk a little bit faster than I usually do. But yeah, I'll go to bar 1. In this template, we're set up with a little bit of room before bar 1. So I'll go to 1, 1, 1, and there's no difference between 1 and 1 here, but I'm OCD, so there you go. And then I'll hit Control L while having the video selected, which is going to jump it to the cursor position. Alright, so we should be up and going. And I use this thing a lot. Alt plus and minus goes 1 frame forward or 1 frame back. That's the plus and minus on the keypad, on the numpad. I mean, not the rest of the keyboard. It's on the numpad. So going back and forth like this. You can also move things 1 frame forward or 1 frame back by nudging. And the easiest way to do that is to change from bars and beats like this, in this mode, into timecode. And if you have a look up here, where you usually see the quantize settings, these will update now. And instead of quantize, it will say 1 frame. So if I select anything, let's just pull up a piano. And this is MIDI region now. And if I wanted to move that 1 frame to the left or to the right, Control and your arrow keys, left or right, will move according to what's in this box. So if I change back to bars and beats and choose use quantize, this is how I move stuff 1 bar to the left, 1 bar to the right. So I need to change this mode from bars and beats to timecode for that to be simpler to move stuff frames wise. Do you ever need to resolve to less than 1 frame? No. I haven't really needed to do that. It's a setting, I believe, like in, I remember working on a TV series half a year ago, and I was the assistant helping out the composer with a lot of technical stuff. But we had an issue there where Cubase wasn't as detailed when bouncing wave files as Pro Tools is. And I believe we could have got around that by, where would that be? Probably in the video. No, there's a place in the preferences where you can toggle on the subframes of the time code. If I felt like I needed to, I would do that, and then I would nudge. Like, I believe you can pull up the nudge, which you can enable or disable the view of right here. I've seen people use these, and it's these guys. So I can move left or move right, trim end or trim end right. It is basically the control left and control right, or the alt left, alt shift left, right, which these guys do. So it's not changing anything. But if you want to not have to remember all of these key commands, you can have that on. But if I wanted to, I could just turn off. Let me show you. So where was the nudge palette? Away you go. And if I wanted to move this like a very small amount, I'm getting rid of this sky. So this is, we're talking about very. I'm now turning off the snap, which means I can move it. So now this is from 114 to 115th of the last quarter note, basically. So it's a lot less than a frame. Notice the template that gave us had subframes already. Okay, that might be a default setting with Cubase. I'm not sure. I don't really use subframes, and but I have a setting on for exporting movies that burns in this time code, which is pretty new for Cubase. For the longest time, you couldn't export videos in Cubase because of things. But I believe here in the video, it's not here, but it's, I know, it's here. So Alt D, Studio Setup, and then down at the video player, you can show or hide the time code on the video, and maybe in the export video window itself. Let's try that. So export video, here we go. And then you can say add time code. What that enables me to do, if like for a lot of the project that I work on, I haven't been working like in the video world for years upon years. So a lot of the projects I get will not have time code, for example. And then we'll spend a lot of time in the communication talking back and forth, talking about, yeah, you know, that point where that flying pig, you know, is flapping its wings, and I really need the point where you just can't see that guy anymore. So, you know, that frame is super important for me. Maybe for the director, right? Is that dumb? I don't know. So let's say that this spot 23 56 59 00, which would be wrong, we're gonna fix that as well. I'm getting ahead of myself, so this is probably not gonna be a good video. But let's say that this spot would be super important. Okay, let me see if there's a way that I can remember that. Let's do that. So I just, right now, just for now, I just split the video into two regions. just so I'm not gonna spend a lot of time trying to find that spot again. Hey Minibots, welcome. So the first thing I do when I've imported a video is to check if there's red text here, and if it is, that means that there's a frame rate mismatch between the project and the video file, and the way to correct that is to hit Shift S for project setup, and then I just do get frame rate from video, and it's going to change to 30 frames per second. Okay, and the red text is gone. So that's the first thing. If you're working with timecode, the frame rate has to be correct, right? So that's how you fix that. And the second thing I do is we've now lined this up at bar 1, remember? And I need the timecode to match what's in the video at this point. Now, if I'm working with a video that has timecode in it, it could be a new, like another episode of a TV series, then it would be episode 1 would be hour 1, episode 2 would be hour 2 typically, and so on. Or if you're just working on a commercial, then the timecode would start at all zeros. So when there is no timecode burnt in, that is what I'm usually going for. Let me close Steam. So the way to do that in Cubase, go to project and then set timecode at cursor. All right. So I want to set timecode at cursor. And I'm just going to say all zeros and click OK. And then I'm asked this really tricky question, which I get wrong a lot of the time. So you have modified the timecode offset. Do you want to keep the project content at its timecode positions? So what that means is if this starts at 3 hours, do you want it to be moved to where the new 3 hours is? Or do you want them to stay right where they are and just update the timecode? And in this case, we don't want them to move. We want them to stay where they are. Okay, so we'll click no. And now the timecode is all zeros. And we can go back to the point where we cheated. And this is, in fact, the same spot that was so super important. That's the last of the wing that we see, and we can mark these the way that we want. So if I were to talk a little bit about spotting, that would be kind of my first. That's why I use multiple marker tracks. So both of these are marker tracks. One is called musical, one is called time. This is for the templates, for the simplicity. We're going to use marker tracks creatively a little later when we do the creative strategy for tonight. But right now I'm just answering a couple of questions. So the difference between them is the time base. So one is musical and one is linear, which means that if I place a marker here, let's place one marker on this is the time-based marker. Then we'll activate the other track and say this is a musical-based marker. Okay, so we have 2 markers in the exact same spot. Now, what happens if I change the tempo from 120 to 160? Now it looks like the musical base marker is in the same spot and the time base marker has moved. However, if I double click the time base marker, I can see that that is the guy that hasn't really moved. However, the musical based marker has, and that's important to be aware of. So if I'm jotting down spotting points, hit points, places that I really need to know and hit in the picture, then I'll start by adding them as time-based markers so that I know that they won't move whenever I change the tempo, right? And let me see if I'm answering your things. The question is, how do you set up your markers correctly to move with the action points and tempo and signature changes? Manipulating linear and musical markers and setting markers to exact frame hit point, for example. So one thing that I do, I have a touch screen, which I love. And this usually doesn't work. Sometimes, no, it doesn't work. It doesn't work to have it full screen, but it probably would for you. It's just I'm doing all sorts of crazy stuff because of the streaming thing. So let's just make it kind of full screen. So you can see it above me, but it is in fact in front of me. It's a like a 45-degree angle touch screen. And what I'm able to do with that is to touch it and just move left and right. And this is not something extra. This is baked into Cubase. And you can do this, in fact, by clicking and dragging. So right will move forward, left will move back in time. And you can get, right now, it's not too hard to get frame accuracy here. Let's say that I wanted that when that poor thing dies, right there, and I can make a marker, and the sad thing now is that it was a musical marker, so we'll change the active marker track to time-based, and I'll say that range creep die, which is the name of that thing. So that's one of the things I do to move back and forth very quickly. And if depending on the format of the video, this will be easier or harder. This is a small MP4 file, video file, so Cubase is not very good at handling those kinds of formats. The bigger video file, the better. Are you dragging on the ruler? No, I'll show you back in the main window. I right click the window and say quarter size. Right now I'm just clicking and dragging. Clicking and holding, dragging. And that is letting me, right on the video. So that is already a awesome feature, but after I bought a touchscreen for my big template and all my nerdy stuff that's in there, I found out this by accident, and it's so nice. It feels really nice to move your hands a little bit and have that in my workflow. I also have like a control surface here, and I have a jog wheel, which you can maybe hear in the background, which is helpful. If I'm doing sound design only and not music, I'll change that control surface into something that lets me use that jog wheel. Right now it's set to control my orchestra sounds and those kinds of things instead, so the jog wheel doesn't work, but I'm fine without it for most projects. Okay, number 2, how do you make musical tempo and time signature decisions between marker or cue points? Well, that will really depend. I remember from school, Guy was talking about kind of camouflaging the if I see that I'm getting this to line up, and I'll show how to do that, by the way. I'm getting this to line up with a quarter note, but it's not going to be the one, and it needed to be the one. Let's make an example. So this is the really important spot, right? And let's say that we have a tempo change before. I like to have like a tempo point right here. It's at 165. Doesn't matter. It's obviously easier to line stuff up if you have more opportunities. So if you're at 160 instead of 40, the chances are better that it's easier to line up, right? So let's say that this guy, time-based, oh, come on, there we go. Time-based marker, this is the really important spot. I'm gonna make you big again. Like so. So 16 seconds and frame 29. That is the really important spot, and that needs to be on a downbeat. Right now, it's kind of in between beat 2 and 3, like 2 and 1/3. And this is one of the things I love most about Cubase when switching to Cubase. So if I hit 7, no, if I hit, I've changed these. So if you click this guy, I'm not sure, I think it's 7 originally, and I've changed it to 5 so that it's kind of, I don't need to move my hand from my standard position. So I'll be able to do 1 through 5 pretty easily. So I've changed it to 5. This is the time warp / warp grid. And what I can do here is to, and this will also change depending on what quantized settings you have. So right now it's set to quarter notes, right? That means I can move every quarter note. If I set it to whole notes, I can move the whole notes, but not anything in between that. So let's say that we wanted the downbeat of bar 14 to be lined up with this guy. This is the cool part. I just click anywhere, basically, and drag. And now it's pretty accurate. And what that has done, if we have a look right here at the tempo thing, is that it has changed. So remember we were at 165, and it's a little bit hard to see, like if I open it here instead. This is now the tempo track editor, and so if I undo and redo, you can see what it has done. So it changes the last data point for the tempo track to fit with the adjustment that I just made. Right, so now the downbeat of 14 is bang on where it should be, and it's not here, but it's here. 1629, that is 1411. Yeah, so that's how you do that, and the important thing is to move from left to right when you're doing this, right? So because things will change in time. So if you're working and you're really happy with what's happening here, and then you see, oh, I need 2 bars more here, then obviously things will not line up when you're going back to this spot. Right, I'm over explaining this probably, but my workflow usually is trying to noodle, come up with something, work without tempo, kind of feel where I would like the tempo to be. Sometimes I choose a tempo that's, you know, musically correct. Examples could be, like, very often I write 6/4 instead of 6/8 because I like to work to a constant quarter note instead of doubling the sounds and stuff. Other examples could be if I'm working with a triplet feel, sometimes I'll just write the triplets and just say again 6/4 or 12/4, or I could do 3/4. And that doesn't really matter to me. It all depends on if it's what's easier for the lining up for the video. What's the easiest way to line stuff up? Basically, I say basically a lot, I know, because I'm editing myself. So the musical tempo, let me see if I've actually answered that. I started on answering it. So say that this wasn't lining up to the downbeat, but it was 1 quarter note shy, so that would mean we needed a bar of 3/4 somewhere in there. Then I would usually try to disguise it somewhere in here and not be like 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2 3, and that's the hit point. That would kind of do 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 kind of. Before we go on, how would you line up the next marker to downbeat? I'll do exactly the same thing. So this would be right, and depending on what would work, obviously, right? So this would have to make musical sense. If I wanted this to be bar 35, that would mean that this passage between time-based marker 1 and marker 2 would jump a lot, and that would maybe not make musical sense. So if that was the case, then I would maybe have to think differently, or that's really hard to explain in a very simple video. But just to explain the concepts, if we do the nearest bar, and again, I'm used to using 7, so that must have been where it was at some point, and I'm just lining these up as best as I can. And going back to 1, and we can open up the tempo track again and see that. So there's one data point right here, which is 160, and the previous data point is, I really hate that I chose the black color for this. Let's choose something that's gonna show the data points. So 160 is there, and the other guy is, oh, so now, no, it's in the correct spot, and this is now also on the downbeat. It's not changing a lot. It's changing from 161.958 to 160 on the money. So if we have a listen to that click, I'm not gonna play all of the bars. I'm just gonna check if that this is actually working. Yeah, I have sound, so you guys probably have sound as well, right? And so the difference between 161 and 160 is so small you won't recognize it. But over time, that could mean that the hit point would be musically would hit 3 frames too late. Right, makes sense. So you kind of go through and before I would add the time signatures, I would just do the nearest quarter note. Is the way I usually would do it, and then kind of fill in the signatures to match what I've drawn in, and then create something with that framework. And I find that to be creatively stimulating. Kind of, this is the boundaries that I'm working. So I'm gonna have a bar of 5 right here. So how can I make that work musically? That way of working is completely fine for me. If you're working the other way around, it could be a little bit more tricky. So I'm gonna show you one more thing about tempo track. So let's say that we wanted this part to be really slow. For each of these data points, you can choose to have them step to the new tempo, or you can choose to ramp them. And it's the setting is, for me, it's a little bit counterintuitive. So if I wanted this to be a slope upwards, I need to choose the data point after, and I could change that to ramp. Right, and so now you can see that the tempo is going up, right? Up and up and up and up, and we're gonna end up at 160. And this is now not gonna match anymore. So that's a important thing to be aware of. If you change it, obviously, since you're not jumping straight up, it's going to take longer. It's going to take a shorter amount of time because the tempo is going up in these bars. So the hit point is lost, and I would need to realign it basically. but that is how you do an accelerondo or a it's been too long, ritardando. I assume you'd use the chord track first with a demo instrument to flesh out your harmonic ideas first, and then build up melodies, themes, and supporting percussion, other elements around that. Yes, that is usually how I go about it. In my template, I have I have a piano that I like to use. And then I would play to the click that I've created, come up with something. If I am a genius and I wasn't recording, I can do a retrospective recording. This is always recording in Cubase 11, so even what I played right now is actually recorded, and I can play it back. That F major ninth is the best thing ever played. So I need to keep that, and that needs to go right on this thing. So looking at the video, oh yes, Cubase can't even play this back, so it's a bad example, but there you go. So that will be kind of my next thing, and I'm trying to keep a very open mind, since I'm not a pianist at all. I am a my education is like a drum set. I'm a drummer, and so the extent of piano teaching that I've had has been through my education and not while growing up. Played a little bit of guitar. So in the studio setting, or in these streams, I'm very much winging it, and sometimes I'm even slowing down the tempo to be able to play what I want to play. I use the step input a lot, which is this guy. If you create a MIDI region, open it up, or open it up in a window, it's this guy, step input, and I could choose 8th note triplets and say, I want to play a whole note scale. Okay, and that is done. It's kind of like Sibelius, or any notation program. So you just input the notes that you want, and you can play it. Right. So I use those things. So what I wanted to say is that in that part of me making a track, I'm not worried at all about the performance. I'm writing stuff down, then I'm adding the chords to it, and let's say that this would be every bar. I would add different things to it. Right, and I would actually do this. So I'll add in all the chords that where I want the chord changes to be. Double click on one of them, and now I can actually play the chord, and Cubase will transcribe it for me, and it usually does a pretty good job. I have a very fond love for adding it will be an add 11 to the dominant chord. So doing this, and there's apparently no good way to write that. So right now you should be watching my piano. So instead of adding in the C to the G chord in C major. And what you can do, so if I knew that this piece, amazing piece, is going to be in C major, right? First going to be first chord, and then I just use the arrow keys, go to the next one. Next one is going to be, so okay, so we're keeping the E on the top there. And then we're doing an A minor 7 and keeping the E on the top. And then we're doing a so that now I already made a mistake. And then we're doing a C over G, and then my special sauce. Okay, and that's why I add in all the numbers, so I can just go to the next. You can also make Cubase transcribe upwards from a MIDI region, which I don't use too often, and you can also there's some settings you can do that will actually, if you want to, you can copy these guys down and get them on your MIDI track. There's also a key command, which I use in the bigger template, that does that automatically for the selected MIDI track. Yes, so that's kind of my workflow, and from there I'll use this. The best thing about Cubase 11 is the ability in the key editor to have the chord track and the marker tracks to be visible, so that I very easily know. Let me go back. So. Right. So if I were recording, I would be able to see where I was going, the hit points, the musical notes that I would want. So I could do a cycle marker in these bars and say that this is going to be slowly flowing, for example, and let's say that this part should be build up, and so on. So I use markers extensively, and I love markers. I love coloring them, and I use them a lot. Once you've fleshed out your composition, okay, so we have gotten to that part. We've now fleshed it out. How do you use your configuration views in your template to easily help your workflow and finish fairly quickly? Let me see what we did for the template, and I'll answer you. So this would be show only the strings, right? Show only the brass. And the way the template works, or the way Cubase works, is that your configurations will automatically add the new tracks in the session to that configuration. So that's why these guys are still showing, and I could hide them, and then this asterisk would appear, and I could update that configuration. So I would add that key command for something that's very easy to push. Keep your projects organized when you're adding a lot of new tracks. If I was moving from keys synth, I haven't done it here yet, but I've done it in the drums. So that's an example. And I believe in the mixer, the way we set it up here was instruments, groups, effects, stems, detailed, which was this kind of thing. Yes. Then we had stems condensed, which goes down to 9 in the end. Pretty much what I would do at this point is I would use a key command that says look for all the tracks that has data in it within the locators. And for me, that doesn't matter what mine is. You can search for. It doesn't have a key command by itself, so you need to add it. But I use that religiously. So that would mean that if I was backing all of you, so this is one thing that I do. I often kind of paint in. When starting, I'm saying, oh, I want some low woodwinds, and I know I want. So I have some key commands that I'm not going through right now, like resizing the track height and stuff. Say that, oh, I want a lot of brass here, and I want one double bass, long double bass. Like I want one long double bass and one short double bass. Okay, and now there's still a lot of tracks here, but if I use this, it doesn't really show the whole picture. What if I opened all of the tracks that's in this template? My template has how much? We're getting close to 2,000 tracks. So in my template, it makes a lot more sense to do this. But if you have a big project, it can be nice to really zoom in on, and you don't by using this locator option, you don't need to select the whole track when doing this. You could say that for these 7 bars or 6 bars, I want to see what's in here, and in here it's a little bit different. And there's also another command called show tracks with data at cursor location. So that would be wherever I put this guy, right? And if I do that, that's not the one. This is, I'm not sure if it, I never used this, but it could be useful for you. So you can set both of those up in the key commands window, track channel and track visibility. I believe it's under here. Yes, so show channels tracks with data at the cursor position, and show channels / tracks with data between the locators. So set those up and you'll be on your merry way to work quickly and only show you what you need to see. So I just wanted to show you while we are getting ready to kind of work on my thing again. Here we have a lot, and you can see on my up here, this is my touchscreen now, and I'm using a very cool software called SHERLOCK. That is the reason why I bought a touchscreen in the first place, and this enables me to so I guess this is a lot of work to get this set up. Let me just preface with that, and it's not going to be for everyone, but this enables me to click on this and show only the drum tracks in my template and the different libraries that I have. And this is different than a modular template, because here, if I wanted Spitfire percussion and I wanted a snare, everything's already loaded, right? So some of them are, I've started disabling, but this is like a multi-computer setup that is, so when I chose to make a tutorial about this, I realized that this wasn't necessarily for everyone. So I chose to go about it a little bit differently. Maybe we'll do a yes, Vienna Ensemble. Cool software that you can run either locally or on another computer. And if you are running it on another computer, you can send MIDI through the internet cable, and then you'll get audio back through the same cable. So that is very helpful because it reduces the workload on the computer you're working on. And sometimes, like the computer that I'm using was my previous music production computer. And instead of selling it, you know, when computers are 3-4 years old, you get almost nothing for them. So I was kind of buying a new computer and then still getting more use out of the old one. And then I'm also using it locally. This is the local version, and it works. You can set it up with different tracks and different instruments. You can use Contact, or in this case, this is Hans Zimmer strings. So this is its own instrument kind of a thing, and it all works. It has its own mixer section, which you can add plugins to if you want to. And the advantages of using it locally is that the Cubase project files are getting a lot smaller, and also I'm not pushing all of the RAM requirements into Cubase, the Cubase application itself. It's still on the computer, and it's still as much of a strain on the computer itself, but Cubase seems to run a lot more stable when I'm doing it this way, instead of kind of cramming 2,000 tracks inside of Cubase and praying and hoping for the best. And I was having project files that was like 600-700 megabytes each, and then I set it to take a backup every 15 minutes. So I would use 4 gigs on nothing for the first hour, you know. So this is an easier way to do it. The biggest thing that I hear when people talk about the advantages of using Vienna Ensemble is to jump between different projects in Cubase is so much quicker, because it doesn't have to unload everything and then load it back in when you're loading the next thing. So think like if you're using probably the same palette of stuff for a movie or a project with multiple projects in it, and jumping between the projects would then go from 10-15 minutes to 1 minute, and that's a lot of minutes saved. So I use that religiously, jumping between them. Now I want a Spitfire solo strings. Okay, cinematic pseudo strings. How's it sounding there? Okay, interesting. It has all sorts of different things, and this is only one page, right? So I have another section. Let's do woodwinds, right? These are all of the Spitfire woodwinds. Let's choose something that has a little bit less tracks. So right here, I'm now kind of gathering the stuff that I would like, and I'm changing page. Looks the same, but these guys will actually toggle the visibility on and off. So I could say I want you, and a you, and you. And now I've kind of cherry picked what I would like for that project. Nothing is deactivated or unloaded by doing it this way, but visually it's a lot easier to work with it. Okay, and I have other pages that kind of this will be hard to see for you guys. Let me move it up. So I have to create an instrument track, for example, or make a stereo track, make a stereo audio track or mono audio track, or convert them. Theory of relativity. Yeah, this is the way I've chosen. Like, I've made my own backgrounds. I've written them on paper. I've colored all these by hand. You know, like I said, this is not for everyone. But I'm that kind of nerd that whenever I have like, I have the Saturday night off, I'm going to do something that I really want to do, then I sit down and I do this kind of stuff. But it enables me to work crazy fast when I need to. My workflow is kind of changing to accommodate this new piece of software. So my configurations are different than the modular template. So my configurations consist of standard, which is only kind of referring to this little button here, which is the track types that is visible, right? So right now I'm not showing some things that I don't want to see. For example, the group tracks and the effects tracks. I don't want to see that at all in this. When I'm doing this, when I'm composing, I only want to see the MIDI tracks and the instrument tracks and the audio tracks. And I want to see all these strange things that we've talked about. earlier. However, if I change this to groups, now I'm only seeing the groups. That is for this. So this would be the stems in the modular template. And these are my groups. And then I have another one for the effects tracks, effects channels. So this would be like for drawing in automation or that kind of stuff. If I ever want to have these readily available and have a look at stuff and see which tracks have audio going through them, I could do that this way. And then I have the last folder, which is VCA faders, which is the way I automate volume in this template. And moving into the mixer view, for me, I have two mixers. I have one mixer that's off onto the side right here, which is always showing me these VCA faders, which would be kind of the big group faders, right? So my configurations for the mixer window, here we have a lot more. So, and just to make my point, I can now, I can just push a button here and make it work. So these would be orchestra returns, which would be kind of all tracks. And then I split them up for drum returns, which would be only the drum returns, right? Oh, you don't see. So that would be a lot less tracks. We could do band returns. Yes, which would be a lot less things depending on what's activated or not. So there might be things here where the tracks are deactivated in the track, and then they wouldn't show up yet. But once we activate it, it would remember the routing and the settings. Okay, synth returns is here, and sound design returns, live returns. We have some tracks here, but they're deactivated, so this is a good example of that. And that would be like acoustic guitar, singing, all things recorded with a mic, basically, or a jack cable. And then again, I would have the groups again, and I'll have the effects, all with track icons and stuff, which I've bought from poundsound.co.uk. Really great, really great. So these, I have icons for every section in the orchestra and a lot of specific synths and stuff. So that helps me see what's on, because if I'm going to start reading the text down here, I would go mad. Looking at this is a lot easier, and it takes an insane amount of time to set this up at this level. So that's why I'm saying it's not for everyone. It is for me. It's the best feeling ever when you're done and you can kind of reap what you've been sowing for hundreds upon hours. And I'm not exaggerating. Just ask some of the other guys watching the stream. We've been doing this for a long time.
And on that note, we've been taking a lot of time to answer a lot of different things. So hopefully you learned something. Please let me know if you did, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.